To my thoughts on Arrow Season 1, Episode 7, Muse of Fire. The episode is rated TV PG. Have no idea how. So will this video be? There will be spoilers for this episode and the ones leading up to it. Another episode I love. Let's dive right in. So, yeah. Another great twist on the formula. You know, this thing of... Dig even just, like, points out, you didn't used to care about the bad guy's reasons, and she is the bad guy. Normally he can distance himself from the like, obviously, there's that phrase, everyone is the hero of their own story. Yeah, rich people who do evil things, they do try to justify it. They don't tend to have anything resembling a good reason, as if there could be a good reason to do something as evil as a lot of these people do. But yeah, that's, he near the end of the episode, there's that talk about, this isn't justice, it's revenge. And she says sometimes revenge is justice. And that's the thing. I would argue revenge can never be justice in reality, but when you get really emotionally invested in, you might start to tell yourself that revenge is justice. And yeah, at this point, like, Oliver is so emotionally engaged with her that, he's struggling to reject that notion. And part of that is it would mean rejecting her. Let's do some chronological stuff. So, yeah. It's one of those things, when an American TV show opens with Previously On and someone says a line that is, like, very, like, sets up a theme or something, yeah, that there's going to be more of that theme. And we have it both with, Moira, do you even want to spend time with me? Do you want to tell me the truth? Like, actually, yeah, in the Previously On, it was tell me the truth. Don't tolerate my voice. Happy family. Happy family. And we have Thea saying, you have to open up to someone. And, well, last time he sort of tried to open up. Well, he tried to open up to Laurel, and ultimately he can only tell her so much of the truth. But, Helena, last name of Troy, I guess, yeah. And yeah, that I will admit, I did briefly think the show was actually gonna have Moira die there at the opening, but I do appreciate that would be too much. Like, okay, his father already died. He is significantly motivated already, and you already, yeah, he's already upset about the death of one woman. You don't have to add another one to that. I think but yeah, the fact that, yeah, he I like the thing with, Thea, sometimes it's hard to tell which one of you is my mother. That was, yeah, quite fun. And yeah, like, she was really starting to sound like Moira there. Talking about, just bite the bullet. Or failing that, the food. Food! And the, yeah, he goes to see her, and, you get the guy saying, have you considered my proposal? And she says no. Well, she doesn't say no. She says the answer is no to the proposal. And, I love, it's so silly. I do love when Hollywood does why would the, motorcycle that Helena is on, like, do the tire screech. Like, it's just so that we know, we and Oliver immediately pick up, which is also, like, I mean, not every time there's a tire screech that there's something wrong, but, yeah, Hollywood and comic book media. So, but yeah, really compelling. And yeah, he runs. You know, he gets his Tom Cruise on and actually manages to basically catch up to it, but then there's a truck in the way. And, you know, he tries to throw the pipe. That was so cool. Like, he's running and he grabs the pipe and throws, or metal, whatever. He throws it, you know, isn't quite enough to stop the motorcycle. And, you know, he goes to, you know, Dig points out, do you really need to train again? Also, I see you managed to get your shirt off. And let's see yeah, the bit at the hospital was also great. And yeah, you know, so yeah, Oliver runs back, and it is like, you left your mother like that, like, you know, and we get why, but yeah, it is like, you know, like Helena, maybe he doesn't have enough um, distance from, you know, what he's doing for it to be justice, you know, and yeah, we have the yeah, Thea makes a remark that sounds like she suspects him, you know, maybe you shouldn't try to be a hero because you're not good at it. That's a, yeah, um, that's one way to phrase that makes it sound like, yeah. You know, crap. At this point, I forget if that was. I think that might have been a deleted scene, but one of the earlier episodes, there was a bit where, maybe it wasn't a deleted scene. Whatever. In one of the earlier episodes, or a deleted scene of it, there was a bit where she said, you know, maybe you are Arrow because you brought me an arrowhead when you came back, and he's like, well, I'm glad I didn't buy you a panda in the gift shop because you'd have thought I was Panda Man. And that would be Pandemanium. And yeah, you know, we were told, well, she does have a concussion, which is also like, yeah, you know, okay, she didn't take a bullet. She fell and her head could have, you know, like, it's slightly unclear if her head hit, you know, hard. And she's like, you know, she says she's fine. That's not enough to know for sure, though, because sometimes that's the thing that, yeah, not so fun fact. Just because you think you're fine doesn't mean you don't have a concussion if you fell. Sometimes, you know, signs of it only show up later. Let's see. Yeah, the thing about, you know, there should be guards outside, and you know, you're welcome. But yeah, also the point made, you know, they weren't gunning for her; they were gunning for the guy, you know, she was talking to, which is also, you know, I mean, Helena doesn't, you know, discuss that particular thing. I figure she would, in this episode at least, I figure she would probably say, well, you know, she was talking to a criminal. I figured that, you know, but that is the thing. Like, you know, if you, that's again one of the big reasons to not do vigilantism in the real world. Innocent people might get, well, okay, I suppose she's not innocent, but nevertheless, you know, Helena almost, you know, killed someone who was not her target. And yeah, I think that does bring us to, so yeah, Dig talking about, you know, the thing, you know, I don't, you know, this is not the way to emotionally process it. And Oliver says, I'm not trying to emotionally process it. And Dig points out, yeah, I don't think that qualifies you for the job either, soldier. Maybe you should be. And that, again, is part of the thing, both in the episode and in real life with stuff like vigilantism. Not exclusively that. Sometimes if you throw yourself into something, maybe it's because there's something you're not processing, you know, and processing your emotions hurts. I know that full well. It's something we got to go through, you know. It is part of maturing, becoming an adult, and living as an adult. And yeah, I really appreciate the episode confronting that. And let's see, I think that does bring us to, yeah. So Oliver, yeah. There's the, you know, Oliver did research on, you know, and, you know, yeah, he did research the way that a lot of research is done recently, both in media and real life. Everything's computer. And yeah, so he, the thing about, okay, gonna go undercover with the mob, yeah, that does sound, you sure about this? That was also very interesting. This was the first episode where he did not go after a name in the book. That I was wondering if he was going to say, the guy behind this is this. His name's in the book, because, like, we know Oliver has a list. He's checked it at least twice. Everyone in there is naughty. No one there is nice. Green Arrow is coming to Starling City. But so he goes to he spots Thea and, is like, well, she's going clubbing, which is difficult to do in the house. And then Oliver's like, can you watch her some more? And Thea's like, I spent all day with her. Are you seriously not gonna, the night shift thing? And, I like, Tommy shows up and Oliver's like, and is like, oh, nice dress. Where are you going? Upstairs, apparently. I think you might be overdressed for that. I think that does bring us to the but yeah, it was nice, the two of them in bed, and the thing about, we could watch reality housewife cooking shows or cop docs, and more being like, we can watch whatever you'd like, I really appreciate this. And yeah, she tells Thea, don't be too hard on your brother, and it is true, as she says, for 5 years he couldn't play Civilization. I think that was the gist of what she said. But yeah, again, really, really great stuff. And let's see. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, let's see. With Tommy, I think this scene, yeah, let's go back a little bit. So there was, because I think that was, yeah. He came to see her, and there's the thing about, I didn't realize you also ordered food. I brought you something, and, there's, can we go on a date? So you brought me food to ask if I want to go on a date with you. It's just, yeah. And the thing about, like, yeah, he was hoping that the charity would, help pave the way for them to try dating, but he did also want to help those, because she says, I thought the charity was for was it the hundreds of people that it would help, and he doesn't say, what are you talking about? No, he says, well, 101, me also, and yeah, they're doing a good job straddling the balance, because it is like, in real life, think hard before you do that, because it really is, it can be very uncomfortable, because, like, she might feel like, oh, do I owe him something now, because that was, it's better when the relationship is more equal. It's great to do charity, but don't do it to get someone to like you. That's not, yeah. But yeah, they and it does feel like, yeah, he is. I feel like he is on the way to getting out of that sort of mindset of this thing of, like, he can buy everything, which certainly by the end of the episode it seems like he's not going to be able to do that. But yeah, the let's see. Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep trying to do this more or less chronologically. So, let's see. Tommy tells. That was also, yeah. I really appreciate the way they're handling Tommy, because he goes to Oliver and he asks, "Is your mom okay?" He's not like, "Can we go party?" He genuinely, he can be somewhat sexist, even misogynistic, but there are women he cares about, and because, like, that again, like, there's a lot of misogynists, they don't care about their own mother or the mother of their male friends, so sometimes that's where it starts, that they don't respect their own mother or their friend's mother, that sort of thing. And I'm not saying all. Notice I did not say, hashtag not all misogynists. Some of them are fiercely protective of their mother. She's like, she got the immunity, from the some of the misogyny. Anyway, yeah, I liked, so he tells them, I really don't want you to hear this from Laurel, so I'm telling you, we're gonna date. And yeah, Ollie's like, you both, you deserve to be happy. And then he makes a threat, and it's like, afterwards he's like, I'm kidding. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm not sure he is kidding. I think he meant that. Like, just, yeah, that might have been a little bit of, because sometimes these superheroes have a difficult time keeping the alter ego and the, uh, non-alter ego, keeping them from being too, yeah. I think that does bring us to, yeah. So Ollie goes to talk to, and that was genuinely clever. We've seen him. There was another episode where he pretended to be the Russian. This like captain. Here he just goes as himself because he can just say, oh, lamestream media. No, I'm definitely part of my father's business. Just don't check at all that I said, which fair enough. Like because like why would he lie? What would Oliver Queen have to gain by lying about being part of his? Because yeah. So yeah, he talks to the guy, and that was right. That was so great. When he said, I'm gonna find out who this guy is, and I'm gonna take him out. And then as the helmet comes off, not a guy, and then we see her in the house of the Burton. I'm just gonna the yeah, Helena's father. Let's go with that because I know that that's an accurate way to describe him. I do not remember. There's so many names. But yeah, we see her at the top of the stairs, and it's like the plot thickens. Holy crap! And then we have the. I feel like there is a. Very clever. This thing of like, well, we gotta go talk to the, the triad. So, the two of you can go out to dinner, and I like the Lindsay Lohan remark that he heard that, and she does actually apologize instead of, like, getting defensive or something. And there's I think she's the one who points out, I made judgments about you, you made judgments about me. And that is, near the end of the episode, she says, she doesn't literally verbatim say, we're not so different, you and I, but I think she says, we're the same, you and I. So, yeah, that old classic trope. And it is, that thing of like, in some ways, Green Arrow so far on the show has been an anti-hero, but in a lot of ways he's been a hero, So far, she qualifies more as an anti-hero. I'm not sure I would go so far as to say villain, because she really hasn't purposefully targeted. She's just not quite careful enough. She hasn't purposefully targeted someone that was straight up innocent. She's defended people who were innocent. But she definitely does go, a little further than Oliver. And I think that does bring us to the some great stuff about the date. And I like the little thing about, please tell your dad we say hi, and you can tell, like, sometimes you can go into a restaurant, it's like, oh, we know your father, tell him I said hi, and it's just like a nice thing. nice guy, not an alien, but then we do know that her father is like mafia, so he's not just saying, it would be nice if, no, he's saying, don't, you're, I don't want to anger your father, I don't want the consequences. That was also quite good, the way that, I think it's only said twice, but it works really well both times. The thing about, we're looking at all-out mob war. We're looking at World War III in Starling City, which, like, holy crap, I did not know that some of these mobsters had nukes. Arrow, get on that. But no, that was very effective. Like, I was sitting there thinking, holy crap, and yeah, they brought back Kelly Hu, and I was thinking, I knew that we weren't only going to see her the one time, and yeah, it is this thing of, like, it is dangerous to so overtly, because like, there's a pretty overt threat, Yeah, I think, I forget his exact line, but I think he did, like, genuinely directly threaten, yeah, I think, and yeah, I appreciate this thing of, like, occasionally bringing back a character that we've seen, at least once before. They're making this feel like a fully populated world. There's a lot of shows where they do a lot of one-off characters, and it can work really well. I'm quite fond of when they do, it is one of those things where you have to be careful. Like, some of my favorite Prison Break characters were one-offs. And I obviously cannot tell you exactly who without spoiling. But, you have to be careful that not every character that not too many characters become one-offs, because at that point it just feels like, oh, this is just like a set that people walk off and on, but yeah, here, like, no, I genuinely, like, we don't even actually see that many. I guess it really is just, I think those are two different, because there's Helena's father, then there's a guy going around, and there's the triad, but somehow it just works, like, we don't need to see all of them, and we also only see, like, 2 times where he goes to talk to, yeah, he talks to the triad, and then he goes to, I can't believe I'm also forgetting that, the restaurant, but yeah, we accept that he's going around to a bunch of different places. I think that does bring us to the the date, the stuff about, she knows about. That's also something I really appreciate. Everybody knows because it was on the news. We saw it. Everybody knows Oliver Queen just got back. So a lot of people, talk to him about that, and a lot of the time he can't really tell too much of the truth. But with Helena, like, pretty quickly it seems he starts, like, saying, yeah, sometimes I miss, feeling free back on the island, the one that I don't think Trump would tweet would be a privilege to go to. And yeah, both of them do genuinely feel, they are not free. They are tied to their family, and they sometimes resent that, and that is also, that's not exclusive to vigilantes. That's, everybody can feel that sometimes. I think that, and right, I quite liked how, early on, like, populated restaurant, and then by the end of, it cuts away, cuts back. They're sitting there, they're, like, basically alone there, and yeah, they talk for much longer than either of them had thought. They thought, oh, we're gonna close, or she thought we're gonna close a business deal. He was hoping to get information, which was also part of why he wasn't, because he doesn't think, which is such a great, I love when media does this. He has no idea he's sitting in front of the actual killer. Like, he's thinking, great, if I'm, sitting there with Helena all evening, I'm never gonna find the killer. It never even occurs to him. And yeah, at the start of the episode, he's like, oh, I'm gonna, take this person out. And then by the end, he knows that it's her, and, I suppose he he doesn't quite take her out in either meaning of the word, but what they're doing could be the result of him taking her out, but in the other meaning of that term. Yeah, it was great when, so yeah, he gets the call, and genuinely, like, he really wished he could stay, but it's Dig, and you have to think, so what happened? It's what's about to happen, Do you know this place? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm here. You're there already. Oh yeah, with Helena. Yeah, quite the sacrifice. And yeah, super cool when. So so he goes in and he's like, you have to pay me my protection money. So classic mobster stuff. And then we have the thing, I already paid. I can't afford to pay you the full amount again already. And then the guy starts breaking his, the stuff he owns, like messing with the, potentially destroying the business, continuing on, yeah, classic mobster stuff. And then he says, break this guy's fingers, and then, I'm gonna, if I had to guess, I think daughter of the owner, she's like, no, please don't. Then he says, yeah, he says, break this guy's fingers, and I'm thinking, oh, you're dead. Then he says, oh, break her fingers too, and I'm like, you're dog meat, pal. And wonderful as, like, yeah, Arrow, takes out the lights, very clever, good thinking, at least one of those guys do have guns, so it is, and yeah, comes in there, takes out at least one of the guns, fights, one of the guys. Then she shows up and starts shooting, and so the two of them fight, and they go, toe to toe, very nicely done. And yeah, he gets the helmet off, and it's like, didn't expect that. And she runs off, and we see on his face, yeah, that was a lot of emotion to process there. That was not in any way what he thought was gonna. So yeah, really nicely done there. And I do like that, Detective Lance doesn't think that Ollie is Green Arrow, but he is like, you should stay away from Helena, which, yeah, again, it's such a trope, but I love it. Everyone who finds out says, stop. Ollie, what are you doing? Like, Dig says it. Detective Lance says, Detective Lance manages to like remove the stick from his butt for 5 seconds to tell him, dude, I'm just looking out for you, okay? It's not a good idea. And by the end, they're, kissing in this. That was also very effectively done with all the fate, crossfade, I think they're called. It's been so long since I looked at the terminology, but yeah, as they're kissing, and I guess that's how they managed to not go past a TV PG rating up to a TV 14 rating, because, like, I think I have an idea of what they might be doing after, but since it doesn't show it, like, they're doing something perhaps best reserved for adults. Chess. But obviously the other thing is the thing I was alluding to. Yeah, that is exclusively for adults. Anyway, yes. I think that does bring us to the the bit with the grave, and that was also, I such great little turns. This thing of, like, nice cross. It was a gift from my fiance, and it sounds like she's saying, stop flirting with me, but then she says, he's dead. And so it's like, yeah, by the end of the episode, it's quite clear, yeah, she wore that to, like, it's basically a symbol of the crusade. It's almost like to remind herself why she does this, in case she ever falters in her devotion to this. And the thing about, how did you find me here? Oh, I followed you from home. I appreciate that you feel comfortable telling her the truth so much of the time. she takes it really well. Let's just say that. Um, and yeah, we have the thing about, yeah. So the bad guys show up, take them both, and um, let's see. We have the yeah. So um, yeah, they they're tied to these chair, or I suppose not tied to the chair, but they their hands are zip tied behind them by the wrist, and dude slaps her and then says he's wanted to do that for a long time because she's spoiled and just wow. Yeah, the I was not expecting her to also be able to get out of the zip ties, and I appreciate they sort of show it, and I'm still like, not. I don't know how they did that, but comic book media, and yeah, again, in some ways she's so much like him, um, which that's the thing, up until this point he hasn't had someone who could fully understand him off island. I mean. And he has not had anyone that like could truly like match him. Like for sure, Dig in some ways, but like the moment that it came up that Dig should dress up as Green Arrow, he was like, "Are you sure about this?" Whereas she probably would dress up as Green Arrow. I'm kidding. She, I mean, she doesn't quite wear a costume, but then I suppose an argument could be made that his is barely a costume, but yeah, so they both cover their faces and wear something that is recognizable and go out there with a weapon of some sort and target very specific people. It is something that he has not met anyone quite like her, and yeah, it makes a ton of sense that there would be that spark, and boy do they have chemistry. Like, it is electric. They light up the screen. Like, they don't even have to, even long before they start making out, just like, yeah, holy crap. The moment that they like start really talking to each other, so much, yeah. Let's see. I think that does bring us nice, but yeah, really cool when they both fight the bad guy and the goons and such, and yeah, she manages to grab the guy by the throat. Oh right, also holy crap, the bit with the thing, great melodrama with the reveals, like your father never told you who killed, the yeah, your father never told you the whole truth. He told me enough. No, I killed your fiance. And he was talking to the FBI, which at first I thought might be a fib, but no, she was the one. It was her laptop. She was the one talking to the FBI, and then he died for it. And then it's your fault. Like, holy crap. Just, yeah. We get why she wants to kill him, and yeah, like, she says afterwards that she had to. I'm not sure if even she believes that, because clearly she didn't. Like, he was at her mercy. She could have given him over to the cops, like, there is evidence of what he's done. You can, yeah, he could go away for a very long time, but she wanted to kill him. She had the chance, so she did. And that's, yeah, a lot of people in, obviously not that exact situation. This is very heightened, but yeah, a lot of people in situations where they hate an individual enough to want to kill them. Yeah, they will, if they have the means and the opportunity, they'll go through with it, and then afterwards say, well, I had no choice, and yeah, it, ultimately, as much as, it happens a lot in media and sadly also in real life, killing is a very it is something that we human beings hate to do. You can just look at how much war propaganda exists. You know, how much it was deemed necessary to make, you know, someone hate the enemy in order to get that someone to be willing to kill another human being. That is a thing. If you're watching this video and you are CVPG aged in real life, please do not look up war propaganda. At least not without, like, what's it called? Parental stuff on. Yeah. I don't want an angry comment from your parents. And I don't want to traumatize you. Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna move on to, but yeah, so great when the when she walks into the room and we just hear her say, before we see him, she says, she says something along the lines of, "I'd ask how you got in, but the vigilante of Starling City comes and goes as he pleases, doesn't he?" So briefly we think, oh, he showed up in costume, and then we see him, he did not. She knew, and says based on the fighting, which makes sense. She saw she saw Green Arrow fight, and then she saw Oliver Queen fight, and they fight the same, obviously. And the I think that does cover. So really, really great that Walter somehow Walter returned, and the thing about he didn't come back just because she got hurt. He was already on his way. He missed his wife. That's so sweet. Just and yeah. Right, I liked Oliver, the thing with Thea apologizing, and then Oliver being, "You're gonna have to be more specific," and she's like, "Don't push it." I think that might just about cover. Yeah, so that truly just leaves the Tommy and Laurel stuff, so that I haven't already talked about. So yeah, they go on the date, and it seems like a good date. I think part of the reason she chose Indian was that she knew him well enough to know that that's a little intense for what he's used to. So that's, yeah, she's like, no, you're going to have to earn this. You're going to, you can't buy your way into dating me, yeah, because they do make a point to say, yeah, she was the one who chose. And she's like, thank you for letting me choose Indian. Because, like, yeah, he could have said, maybe not. And it was great when he said the quote, which also I think I have read that quote myself, and it is great. I'm afraid I forget who said it, but yeah. If only you could watch your favorite movie for the first time again. And like literally, as soon as he said, favorite movie, I knew that was where that was going. And it's such a great quote. It's so true. There's so many things in life where if only we could re-experience for the first time. But yeah, the card is rejected, and the guy working there cuts it up right in front of him and then says, "I was also instructed by your credit card company to arrest and flog you, but that goes a little bit outside of my personal expertise." And yeah, he goes to his father, who, and the thing about, this isn't a joke. No, you are. You had that one in the chamber for a while, didn't you? You were just waiting until you cut him off to yeah. And the yeah, I really, really like what they're doing with Tommy so far. Because that's the thing, and we're gonna see exactly how he handles, not having all this. It was his trust fund, and the thing about it is comprised of my money, was comprised, and yeah, just little things like the fact that he doesn't say, oh no, now I'm one of those poors, I can't afford hyenas. He's like, obviously, like, it hurts, but he's not acting like, if you're not rich, you're not, you don't have value or something. And Laurel makes it clear, as, we already pretty much knew. For her, it's not about his money, She liked him for him, and she's not going to, like, abandon him. And yeah, it's very interesting. Like, he's gonna have to get a job, obviously find a less expensive apartment, and these various, I really look forward to seeing how this is going to, like, play out. And yeah, it's again, like, there's an old rule in storytelling. One of a very effective way to explore a character is to take away the thing that defines them and or makes them powerful in what to whatever degree they have power, and with Tommy, that is of course his money. It isn't always that. I've seen other stories where it is an officer who no longer, who is, stripped of rank or just physically removed from the men that he used to be in charge of. And yeah, because you see what someone, there's also that saying about you do not truly know someone until you fight them. You don't know a person until you've seen how they act when things go very, very wrong, perhaps in a way that they never expected it would. And yeah, we got little glimpses here because we don't spend a lot of time with Tommy after in this episode after he realizes, but yeah, and also just like the fact that he goes to Laurel and tells her everything. He's not pretending that, because that's there some people would, he'd go there and he'd say, sorry about my card getting declined at the restaurant, it's fixed now, and somehow pretend he was still rich because he just couldn't handle it. He couldn't face her like that. But he chooses to go to her and tell her everything about what he lost. And it doesn't at all come across, some people would use that to try to manipulate. It doesn't feel like that's what he's doing. He just genuinely trusts her, because that's another thing, when you go from rich to poor, you find out who your real friends are. That is, thankfully, I've never experienced that myself. But yeah, that is something, again, a truism. But yeah, really looking forward to seeing what exactly he's going to do. And it's, I like the thing about, she's like, you're going to be great because there's pizza in the refrigerator, which, like, yeah, I mean, that is just one of those things, things can be real bad, but there's pizza. Even though it's like, it's going to be reheated pizza, it was probably better right when it arrived, but there was also, the sushi, I think it was. But yeah, really appreciate, several things here. Love that, because he brings up the fact that they had sex, what was it, like, friends with benefits, extremely good benefits. And she doesn't look ashamed. She's just like, it was pretty good, which, like, because, like, we have to get to a place where we're not shaming women for their sexuality. There is nothing wrong with a woman, being sexual. It's only, as long as consent is respected. Yeah. Let's see. I think that does bring us to, and it's also clear he's not bringing it up to shame her, or to say, like, let's jump into bed right now. He's just, And let's see, I think and I did also appreciate his father's line about, why not sooner? Because, like, yeah, it's he has been behaving really badly for some time now, years, and yeah, um, it is, of course, like the fact that, I mean, it was trust fund, I'm pretty sure you need to, like, do some, some ridiculous yeah, some kind of thing to even get that money back. I forget. It's possible that that's different, but yeah, he really really wanted to cut his son off. Um, yeah, I think right. I did briefly want to say so yeah. For Laurel, she's not with Tommy because of the money, which that's another thing we gotta get away from this idea of like the gold digger, because like so much of the time, if there is a relationship between a man and a woman and he has a lot of money and she is spending a lot of that money, or like in part with him for the money, so much of the time it's because that's the way he defined their relationship. He made it clear to her that that was something that, if they were together, she could spend a lot of his money. And then these men will turn around and say, she's spending all my money. It's like, well, you set this up. Like, that's something, again, um, major life lesson. When you start a relationship with someone, and it doesn't have to be romantic, it can be a friendship or something, be honest about and realistic about the terms of that relationship. Because if you say, oh, we can definitely do this, or you can have this, or such, you know, yeah, like the other person might genuinely believe you, even if you deep down are, not going to keep honoring that, It's not necessarily wrong for a man to like spend a lot of money on, a woman, or you know, yeah, give her access to a lot of his money. You just have to be honest about, is this the way you want the relationship to be, or do you want, and it's not easy to take the discussion about finances with your partner. And I do also want to note, obviously, this is not just for straight couples. This is for everyone. You'll want to set the realistic terms, and then like if the other person doesn't honor the terms you've set, like try to have a conversation with them, and if ultimately they can't or won't um, honor the terms, you may have to consider ending that relationship. But if you set specific terms, you gotta be ready for those terms to be, for the other person to keep expecting those terms. Yeah. I think that pretty well covers. And with the whole gold digger trope, we also have stuff like, well, a lot of the men who are like, oh, no, no gold digger, a lot of those men are like really misogynistic and don't want women to work or to get money in any other way. So it's like, she's spending some of your money because you said that she can't have any of her own. Like, again, what did you think was going to happen? But yeah, I really looking forward to more of how Tommy is going to handle this, and the relationship between Oliver and Helena, because I can absolutely imagine, like right now it's working out, but I don't know if that's going to keep being the case, considering the differences of opinion and such. Um, but yeah, I feel like Tommy's got to feel pretty betrayed right now. Like, I figure he's probably thinking, about his dad. You didn't have to cut me off. You treat me like a stranger, and that feels so rough.